and so here is this man who has found a way to deflect the attacks on him by saying this is yet another example of the system attacking you, your beliefs, your values, your very identity.
He is putting people in this state of, sort of panic where they have to go along with whatever he says because they look at him, and I'm paraphrasing here, sort of the bulwark between us and them, of their country being taken away. And it appears to be working, Senator.
I said that no matter what you think, I'm on team. There's two teams fighting in this world since humanity began. Us versus them, or just us. And I will always be on the just us team.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Don Lemon Show. I am so grateful to be joined by none other than the man you see there on your screen, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. Senator, thank you for joining us so much. We appreciate you coming on the show. How you doing?
Man, I'm home in Jersey and I'm happy.
Is that because you're not on Capitol Hill or in Washington where all this mess is happening?
It's good to go down there. You strap on your armor and you, fight with your heart. But coming back home here in Newark, it's just always nourishing, nurturing, restorative to my soul.
Yeah. What is going on, Senator? I see stuff with like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like just being disrespectful to Dr. Fauci and all of the hijinks that are happening. What is happening there in Washington?
I don't even think it's just Washington. I think we're in a cultural clash right now where outrage politics, manufactured outrage often, where crass condemnation, this kind of toxic tribalism, fierce partisanship, it's all bringing out the best. And it's behavior that's rewarded. Let's be clear, Marjorie Taylor Greene raises a ton of money online. Mm-hmm. The person that heckled Barack Obama during the State of the Union address from South Carolina had like his best fundraising stretch after that. And so here you have actors that believe that this kind of behavior makes them champions and heroes. This isn't new though. Back when the caning of Sumter, you remember that during the pre-bellum, before the Civil War, leading into it, a senator had given an abolitionist speech. A House member felt like he insulted his family member, and he came over with a cane, hit him with the cane. Well, he was removed from the House, but thousands of people sent him canes in the mail, and he was heralded as a hero, got reelected to the House of Representatives. So there's this baser part of our culture that is being heralded, and we have to fight against that. Mm-hmm. And the way you cure it is not with more of it. I remember I was running for a town hall stage in Iowa when I was running for president. I'm about to jump up on the stage, and this big guy, I'm a former Stanford tight end, he looked like he was a former Iowa linebacker, and he looks at me and he goes, "Dude, I want you to punch Donald Trump in the face." And I look at him and I go, "Dude, that's a felony." Yeah. and He laughs, and I joke with him. I said, "Hey, can I tease you from the stage?" So I jump up on the stage, hundreds of people, and I say, "Hey, I just had this interaction with this guy." He goes, "Dude, would you punch Donald Trump in the face?" And people cheered. And I said, "Now wait a minute. Let's slow down and think for a second." I said, did Martin Luther King beat Bull Connor by bringing bigger dogs and bigger fire hoses? Or did he appeal to the conscience of our country and the moral imagination of our nation? Did he challenge us to see each other as brothers and sisters or as enemies? And I said that no matter what you think, I'm on team. There's two teams fighting in this world since humanity began. Us versus them, or just us. And I will always be on the just us team. Yeah. And so, look, I think that this is a time where we need more leaders on both sides of the aisle that will call to those better angels of our nature. And here's something that happened this week. My favorite event in D.C. this past week was Senator Mark Warner and Senator Lisa Murkowski hosted a bipartisan dinner away from Capitol Hill for about, I think it was about 18 of us, to just have a conversation about how do we heal the Senate? How do we find constructive ways to get the institution to work like it did?
Did you figure it out? Because the American people would love that. I
Yeah,
mean, you probably get a
think-
Nobel Prize if you guys could figure that out.
I think it begins with conversations like that. It was such constructive, honest talk from the senators that were assembled. It was one of my favorite meals I've had in Washington.
Well, let me just say, you said, when the guy said punch Donald Trump in the face, and you said it was a felony. Speaking of felonies, okay, I want to talk about 34 of them.
Yes.
Because, he has settled on this message from being found guilty of 34 criminal counts. It's not a message of contrition, Senator. It's really one of retribution, openly musing about locking up his political enemies should he win back the White House. Do you take him at his word on this?
Well, first of all, I take him at who he is and the repeated pattern of his life. This is not the first time. It is the first time it was a felony, but you and I both know, you've covered it, how many times in every area of this man's life have courts had to slam him down. Let's talk about his charity. He was ordered to dismantle his charity and pay millions of dollars in fines because it
Trump
was
University.
corrupt. Yep, it was corrupt. Let's talk about his business dealings. He's been banned from the state of New York before. He's been cited in great detail in the New York Times. I think it was an award-winning expose. The statute of limitations had been up, but he was cheating on his taxes. And so I can go through every aspect of this man's life, from his personal life, Eugene Carroll, to his charitable life, farce, dismantling that, to his political life, to now his electoral life. Every area, as objective as you want to be, courts and legal proceedings over decades have always said you are wrong, corrupt, and unethical. So this falls right in line with this behavior of this American. And if you think that he can just say this is, in this one case, it's the rigged system or what have you. No, every step of your life, before politics, and you got into politics after politics, people have exposed your criminal, corrupt, unethical behavior. And for me, a long time ago, enough was enough. But I'm hoping there are enough voters who look at this objectively, the pattern of behaviors of this individual, and say, this person should not occupy the highest office in our land and the most important elected position in the world.
Well, it's interesting because, it's always somebody else's fault. He's always a victim. It's not his fault. Somebody else is doing it. Everything. He can't be a criminal. He doesn't lie, even though the lies show. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, his Houdini move, his prestidigitation, his ability is not just to say he's the victim. His ability is to make you think that you're being victimized as well. They're coming after us. This is not an assault on Donald Trump. This is an assault on us, on you. And it's able to tap into this feeling that many people have in America right now, on both sides of the aisle, that this system is working against us. And go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. And here's what?
And so here is this man who has found a way to deflect the attacks on him by saying, this is yet another example of the system attacking you, your beliefs, your values, your very identity.
I was speaking to Anthony Scaramucci in a recent show that we have on our channel, and he said something very similar to you. He said that Donald Trump operates on fear, and he is co-opting the people who are afraid of the browning and blackening of America. And by operating on those fears, he is putting people in this state of, sort of panic, where they have to go along with whatever he says because they look at him, and I'm paraphrasing here, sort of the bulwark between us and them, of their country being taken away. And it appears to be working, Senator.
Yeah, I'm going to just take an issue with one of those things. You and I have lived as black men in America all of our lives, and both you and I have experiences. But I actually think that that bigotry or racism that we have encountered and we see, I was reading a Harvard study recently, that dark strain in our country, that Scaramucci's getting a little something wrong here, which is there is a lot of people in America on both sides of the aisle who are seeing the deal that worked for my parents and grandparents isn't working for me. In rural America, suicide for farmers is up three times higher than it is for Americans. People are losing their farms at alarming rates, tens of thousands of farms being lost because the economics of farming in this country have changed. You have people that can't afford to raise their kids. It might have been raised at a time where one income earner could work. Too expensive to go to college, too expensive to get childcare if you have kids and the like. So there is that. It is so hard for a working class family in America right now that many people are beginning to have that frustration. Now, I think demagogues come along, and this is as old in politics as you can be, and blame it on black folks, blame it on immigrants, blame it on what have you. But the reality is we should be doing much better as the richest country in the world in making this country more affordable, more fair, and more just. And he is a good charlatan. He is a good demagogue. Like there's been demagogues in every generation that have been able to capture the frustrations of a population and not talk to them in a way that brings us together, but talk to them in a way that divides us against each other.
Well, he's saying something. I think you guys are closer together on how you feel about it than one would think, than you might think. But listen, even with that, you talked about the how people are feeling, the farmers or whatever, and it's awful that is happening. But if you actually look at what the Biden administration is doing, the economy is doing very well. The country is doing well right now. We could be better. He just, the Republicans have been saying you need to do something about the border. Donald Trump stepped in and said, don't do anything because I want to run on it. But there was a bipartisan agreement. Now there are executive orders to fix what's happening at the border and with immigration in general. So the country is doing well, especially, if you compare it to other industrialized, civilized nations. So why aren't Americans feeling? Why is it not working? Why is it not translating? Especially if you look at the polls, you've got a man who wants to be president, who was president, who had 34 criminal counts, yet he is in this latest 538 average poll puts Trump 1.6 points ahead of Joe Biden. What is going on? How does the administration turn this around?
Well, before we go to that, I think an important point to just establish beforehand is, and again, this is not the popular understanding, but let's just Trump really only had one big legislative accomplishment, which was his tax cut. Now, Biden had so many, people forget. You have to remind them. But let's compare both of their tax cuts, because both of them had historic tax cuts. Donald Trump's tax cuts overwhelmingly went to the wealthiest corporations and individuals. Joe Biden, people don't know this, had one of the biggest middle-class tax cuts in American history, which was the child tax credit expansion. Literally, like 84 to 85% of the families in New Jersey got significant money back on their federal taxes. And it had the collateral benefit of cutting child poverty almost in half in the United States of America. And every dollar Americans spend on raising a child above the poverty line, they actually get like $5 to $6 back because of the expanded economic potential, lower healthcare costs for that person, and so on and so forth. So everything that Donald Trump tries to say that he did, his tax cut blew a massive hole in the deficit. What Biden's spending actually is closing the deficit spending. The debt is still growing because he's closing the deficit, but it's still a deficit, adding to the national debt. So Biden objectively, when I talk to Republican friends and say, you've had almost 4 years of each president, what are the accomplishments of this guy that were better than the accomplishments of this guy? And there's nothing that somebody can tell me that Biden hasn't done better, including new business starts. We're setting records for Black America. We set a record already, the most new business starts there are.
The lowest Black unemployment. Listen, Senator, I'm with you. I get it. You heard, my question, and
No.
I
your
know that
question
you're
was
there
so
in
good.
Washington, but it's not resonating. You have people, when I talk to people, you know what they say to me? Well, I like Donald Trump, even black men. I like Donald Trump because he gave me a check, right? Because his name was on the check. That was a Democratic Congress. They know nothing about the
Yes.
accomplishments of Joe Biden. And
Right.
that
And so
is not, that's a failure of Democrats. It's a failure of the administration for
no.
people not to
You and I
know.
both
In
know.
messaging,
Yes. Well,
I,
I'm not gonna argue with that. I just know first and foremost, it is far easier to sell something of value than to sell BS. So we know already, objectively. I've gone for the Biden campaign to black barbershops and had these conversations with black men who are frustrated because they don't know. But I always start with the facts. Lowest ever black unemployment rate. Highest coverage of black people by health insurance ever in the history of America. Most black businesses starting up. I can go through. I got receipts a mile long for what he's done for black America and America as a whole. I start there. Your point, which is very precise, but I think on your podcast it's important to say that it is unequivocal for the economy, for new businesses, for healthcare, for the environment, unequivocal that on those measures, you pick your indices, we can talk about the border, is that Biden has been a better president. Now the question, which you said, you put your finger on it, is messaging. Now, I will tell you, it's a 4-lap race, and Biden's in his last lap, and I promise you there's going to be a kick. He's going to start doing it. And I've been looking into the bowels of this campaign, and I've seen their messaging operation. I've seen them starting to ramp up in not only in the swing states, but with specificity to the right audiences within those states. I see it starting to ramp up, and there's going to be a lot of work going on. I've just begun my travel, as many other surrogates have, to go into communities like Milwaukee or Detroit or Philly or the surrounding suburbs of those states, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona. These are all things that are on my travel list for the Biden campaign, and it's going to start to increase in frequency. So there's going to be a messaging surge coming soon. And I have seen the focus group data that you get a whole bunch of people in and you poll them right away, and it isn't great. It isn't bad, but it isn't great, as you said, very narrow. But as soon as you give them information, as soon as you let them know that for my community, when Flint, Michigan happened, you covered that so profoundly, with the elevated blood lead levels for kids. Well, there were 3,000 jurisdictions in America where children had more than 3 times the blood lead levels. Well, this president, you tell people in communities like that, has gotten every lead pipe out of the ground, or at least got the money already allocated for that. You go through all these things with people, you could see it in the focus groups, and they shift quickly to Biden.
Do you remember when Barack Obama was running and how he took advantage of social media, right? It was sort of, not necessarily the beginning, but pretty close to the beginning of social media. And it was the first sort of presidential candidate to do that. There is something very similar happening with streaming, with podcasts, online, and also with social media that I don't believe, and maybe this is in the cards or in the plan, that I don't believe that the administration and the campaign are taking advantage of. Because when you go on the big broadcasts, you do a big New York Times interview, you're preaching to the choir. The people who are wanting information that is different are not in those spaces. The people who are the most uninformed are the people who are not in those spaces. It's in the places where there are no editorial controls. There's no standards and practices to say, you cannot put this on the air. You cannot say that because it's not true. And that's where people are getting their information from. So I think that the administration and the campaign have to start looking at new ways and understanding the landscape that they're in now. Because even I, as someone who was in traditional media for a long time, I have been shocked by the number of people who recognize me and who hear the messaging and the folks who are in streaming rather than in traditional broadcasts, even newspapers, okay? That's one thing. The other thing is that you have people like Byron Donalds, who wants to be Donald Trump's VP, and other men of color who are uninformed, and some people of color as well. Byron Donalds is saying stuff like black families were better off during Jim Crow than they are under Joe Biden, President Biden. And that's resonating. And then you have 50 Cent, who was at an event with Donald Trump yesterday and with the MAGA folks, and he's saying that people are turning, especially African Americans, because of RICO, because of the charges that Donald Trump has faced. What is going on? Do you understand? You understand what I'm saying? These people are not getting their information from traditional news services.
No. And I agree with you, but I also remember how Obama had to learn that. You remember he started going on like Between Two Ferns and things like that when he was getting close to when he needed to get certain messages out. They started to learn, you've got to go where non-traditional folks are going to hear you. I would have had a TikTok account. I've had a TikTok account from the beginning, not just for election purposes, but I know that millennials are becoming the biggest voting bloc in the United States of America. Millennials are in their 40s now and below. And you got to.
My mom is 81. She'll be 82 in October, and she watches YouTube. She was hooked on cable. Now she's watching YouTube. My friend who's 60-something years old, she watches YouTube because that algorithm just sort of feeds them what they want. But that's part of my question. But also there's some people are not getting information, and they're being misled, quite honestly, by people like Byron Donalds. What do you think about that, and how do you combat that?
Well, I combat that, number one, by my taking responsibility. I can only control so many things. I'm not running the campaign. I know I get briefed by them, but I'm going to do everything I can so that by the time November comes around, you'll be saying Booker's everywhere, in the same way that Byron is. That you see more than just me. You see Raphael Warnock everywhere. You see Clyburn everywhere. You see some of these incredible young Black House members going out there and letting folks know that this is existential for communities of color. So I'm confident in that we'll put our army of African American leaders on the field versus their very, very small amount of people who, some of them just don't have all the facts.
You saw how Jasmine Crockett she punched through. And,
Yes.
Bleach Blonde Bad Butch Body is like, people were like, yes, finally, someone, a Democrat fighting back. And sometimes I can say this now. I couldn't say it before. You guys are sometimes way too buttoned up because there is absolutely nothing that Joe Biden can do, President Biden, excuse me. There's nothing that Vice President Kamala Harris can do. There's nothing that Senator Cory Booker can do that is worse than 34 counts, criminal counts. Being found liable for sexual assaulting a woman, for being impeached twice, and on and on. There's nothing that you can do. You guys are way too careful. You have to get out there and you have to break through, or this man will be back in the White House and we'll be stuck with Project 2025. I'm just telling you.
What I want folks to stop doing, I see these circular firing squads in the Democratic Party, too many circles of people coming together and worrying themselves. The only way to combat worry is work. The only way to combat fear is by fighting. And so stop, complaining about this and understand. I've seen the data. The most influential people are the people you know. You can influence them much more than a campaign ad or a podcast. So what is your social media account saying? Are you putting up the truth? Are you using every means you have to affect the circles around you? Stop whining because you create that reality. Fear creates more fear. It's viral. But so is enthusiasm, excitement, confidence, swagger. It's all the same way.
Right.
So I've got most accomplished president. I've got the most accomplished president in my lifetime. I love Obama. I love her husband too, but I love Obama. And I love Clinton and his accomplishment, but nobody's accomplished more than Biden, especially for the communities like the one I'm sitting in right now, which is a majority Black city.
But you need some swagger. You need some swagger. You guys need some swagger. You need that young energy from the Obama. Look at what the young folks who led Obama helped to put him into the White House with Pod Save America. Look at what they're doing. They're owning the liberal space. They're messaging. They're going to college campuses and to arenas and to venues all around the country, messaging, and they're doing it through not on linear television, because you know what, people don't carry their televisions around. They carry these around.
Yes.
And every single person has a phone with a TikTok or or a YouTube or Instagram or even Twitter. They have all of those devices, and that's where they're getting their information from. But I think you guys do need some swagger. I'm just saying, and don't be so buttoned up. Like, just get out there and meet the folks. You need some swagger. I'm sorry. I hate to be preaching, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
No, I do.
Because I'm
understand what you're
scared,
saying.
actually. I'm really scared.
But you should be scared. The specter of Trump is horrible. But again, if you're going to come to me to worry, show me how much you're going to work. And I promise you that you're right. We need more people need to be out there talking up the positive. You think when Trump has a massive mess up, all the people in the Trump circles circle up and start worrying about it and saying, oh no, 34 indictments, oh no. No, they don't. So why
or start criticizing him. They don't start criticizing him. Look,
right.
I think constructive criticism is right, and journalists have to do their jobs. But for people who are in the political realm of this, right, the Republicans, they circle the wagons, right? Democrats eat their own. And so, stop saying the president is old. What's wrong with being old? With age comes wisdom. I would rather have someone who's wise in the White House than someone who's not. I'm just saying. And I'm going to stop, I'm going to get off my high horse, because I think I'm, maybe ticking you off by telling you.
No, you're not. Listen, brother. Listen. First of all, I was telling somebody before I came on, a friend of mine, just how much I miss you. You were catharsis for me to go on your show and get a chance to talk, because you kept it real. You were one of these people that people, like you or not, they knew they could tune into you for you keeping it real, and they were going to feel you. They were going to feel your truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, let's just say when I talk about people circling the wagon, right? I mean, you had a sports commentator, Pat McAfee, call a woman a bitch on television, and is keeping their job, and people are supporting him. They're saying, well, he has a point. He has a point. I understand what he means. But, I'm not there anymore. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. So there you go.
I mean, again, there are many double standards, my friend. Many double standards.
So what's your response, though, to Byron Donalds when you hear that? Because I thought it was just outrageous to say that black people were better off, black families were better off during Jim Crow. It kind of reminded me of Ron DeSantis and folks saying that there were usable skills that African Americans learned during slavery.
Look, I imagine he's trying to get a certain response, and I'm not going to give him that response. There's not a black person that knows that we have come a long way. Stony the road we trod, over the tears of the slaughtered. We have come a mighty long way, and have really been Democrats who have fought for us in spaces like this. That's why the Congressional Black Caucus, now the biggest caucus in terms of ethnicities in the House of Representatives, is so powerful, because black communities are electing great black leaders in the Democratic Party. And I will put our agenda and our accomplishments side by side with Republicans have not only done or tried to do, but frankly what they stand for: rolling back voting rights, rolling back union rights, rolling back reproductive rights. These are things that hurt the black community more when you do these things. Stopping common sense gun control. These are things where blacks are affected more deeply for it. Even just investing in healthcare and health coverage. African Americans have higher rates of of diseases. So it's stunning to me that someone who is a member of a party that blocks so many things, and now is bringing lawsuits against private groups. There's a great fund that's trying to get more money to black women VCs, and it's being sued by a right-wing conservative organization. So this is the kind of stuff that, to me, is preposterous. And I know at the heart of it, the black community knows that.
So the morning after election night, what's the headline on I won't say in the papers, what's the headline when you open up your app, whether it's a newspaper or a social media? What does it say?
I mean, clearly it's going to say Biden wins. I believe that unequivocally. I think the more that this country focuses back in on Donald Trump, He's been in the periphery. He has never left your eyesight, but he's been in the periphery, and people haven't have sort of are not as familiar with or reminded of all the things he's done. And I think Joe Biden's right. If one of my favorite quotes of his is, judge me by the alternative as well. This is a guy who folks know when he was in office there was chaos, conflict, and a lack of character in the White House, and he breeded that. Every day he was making headlines for saying outrageous stuff. When it came to foreign policy, he terrifies me. He buddies up with Putin and other dictators and slams critical allies that Biden has done a great job in rallying to do things like defend Ukraine. So I believe we're going to win this. I don't believe it's going to be easy, but I think you'll read that we defended the presidency and Biden's got a second term, that Hakeem Jeffries is the first ever African-American Speaker of the House.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be hard. We've got to run the table in the Senate to hold on to it. We got to win some very tough races in Ohio and Montana. But if anybody can win, John Tester, Sherrod Brown, Bob Casey, these are extraordinary leaders who are polling ahead of the president in their own states.
My question is, though, can Andy Kim win? Because, there's a lot of stuff going on in the New Jersey primary because Andy Kim has just secured the Democratic Party's nomination there, the incumbent. However,
listen, first of all,
Menendez.
Don't come at me with your real concern. You're this snooty New Yorker who looks down on the Garden State. And I know this enough to know that you really don't care about America's greatest of its 50 states.
I do care because it.
When's the last time you've been in Jersey? When's the last time you've been in Jersey?
The last time I was in
10 miles from New Jersey. When's the last time you've been in my state?
God, I cannot remember the last time I was in Jersey. I can tell you the last time I was in Jersey. I was at Newark Airport a couple weeks ago. So
which is a mile from my house. That you didn't call me, man. That's messed up. That's messed up.
Look, I think seriously, in all seriousness, I'm concerned, and I think everyone should be concerned because it means it has repercussions for the balance of the Senate. You have this incumbent who's a Democrat, who's Robert Menendez. He's on the ballot as an independent. I know that you called Menendez. You called on him to resign after these allegations of bribery and acting as a foreign agent emerged in this federal indictment. But do you fear that Menendez may lead to a Republican taking that seat if he continues to do what he is doing?
No, of this I have no fear whatsoever.
All right.
And I'm telling you that Bob has a tough trial now. He's going to be tried by a jury of his peers. He's presumed innocent. You and I both know enough about the criminal justice system that we should presume his innocence, but it's going to be a tough trial. And to speculate about what's going to happen after that trial is a tough one, but there's no pathway for him, I think, politically right now because he does not have the Democratic nomination. And Andy Kim is such a strong candidate. And the more New Jersey gets to know him, the more they're going to fall in love with him. And he will be my colleague in the Senate.
How dare you call me a snooty New Yorker? I had to get that question in before I hit you. How dare you, Senator Cory Booker? Wait till I see you in person. Is there
I know that you have the editing power, so you're going to edit this in a way that's going to make me look bad.
No, I would never do that.
You're a sophisticated New Yorker that probably looks at people with Jersey driver's licenses when you're in the back of your cab or your town car and just says, look at that Jersey driver.
See, Jersey, you don't even know. They don't even make town cars anymore. So they're SUVs. No, but
I wouldn't be caught in an old town car.
I appreciate the freedom that I have here to be able to discuss things like this with you and at length. And I'm wishing the Democrats the best of luck. When I was in traditional television, I could not say these things. But as you know, and maybe you don't, I am an independent. I'm not a Democrat, nor am I a Republican. But I believe that the Democrats believe in democracy. And if Donald Trump gets back into the White House, we won't have a democracy. Our democratic republic will be lost forever. And so this is what I'm doing. This is my voice, and I'm trying to lend to saving the country. That's it.
I don't know what political affiliation until you told me you're a straight shooter, and I've always found you that way.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like people, this is not the norm. What we're seeing right now is not the norm.
No.
I had this great moment that you'll appreciate. It wasn't this State of the Union; it was last State of the Union. I'm walking out. I just voted about an hour before the speech. I was going to go back to my office and then come back and line up when we walk across the Capitol to the House. And I come out the door. I love walking out the ornate door on the east side of the Senate chamber, because you then go on the Capitol steps and you see the Supreme Court right in front of you, the Capitol dome over your right shoulder, the Library of Congress is right there, which is a gorgeous building. And that's the you and I know this exact spot because as kids we saw Bill sitting there on Capitol Hill, Schoolhouse Rock. And I just paused there for a second. As the fourth black person ever elected to this institution behind me, the United States Senate, I sometimes pause and just count my blessings. I mean, It's just amazing that I'm standing there. All that had to happen in human history for me to stand there. On this particular day, an hour before the State of the Union address, my phone rings, and on the phone, I hear the stupidest question in America. Now, that's a bold claim. You could fact check this. I think this is the dumbest question in America. I answer my phone and the person goes, "Hello, this is the White House operator. Will you hold for the President of the United States?"
Yes.
I'm like, who the hell says no to that question? Like I'm washing my hair or something. So I'm like, yes, of course. And next thing you know, here I am standing there, Supreme Court, United States Senate, Capitol Dome, Library of Congress, the steps that Bill from sitting there on Capitol Hill, and I hear this voice, "Cory!" And I'm like, "Mr. President." And he goes, "Cory, I'm working on my State of the Union speech, and I want your help." And at that moment, like all the guilt I've had in all my college and law school, and even now waiting till the last minute to write a paper or something, that was all absolved. Here's the President of the United States, an hour before he has to go before the nation, and he's still working on his speech. And I'm like, "Of course, Mr. President, anything that you want, sir." And he goes, "Well, can I read you this section of the speech? I happen to have a lot of policy depth in this section." And I'm blown away. The President of the United States is rehearsing a section of his speech, and he reads it for me. And then he asks me, and I know you've had this moment in your personal life, then it's sort of the version of like, "Does this shirt make me look fat?" You know, like he said, like, "Do you answer truthfully or no?" He says to me, "What do you think?" And I take a deep breath, because if the President of the United States is going to call me for my opinion, I'm not going to, I'm going to give it to him. And so I said, "Sir, it's strong in this area, but I'd turn this knob down. I would say this." I gave him honest, candid feedback. And he's like, "Thank you very much, Cory. Thank you very much." Hangs up the phone. My head is now spinning. I hustle back to my office, tell my chief of staff, get back to the Senate chamber, where it's an amazing tradition. We all line up and gather before the door. And then at the moment we get the signal, they open the doors and you can see a straight line to the doors of the House. But now you're walking through history. You walk through by the old Senate chamber. You walk by where the Library of Congress used to be, which is now Mitch McConnell's office. You walk under the dome of the Capitol, where only statues of presidents can be under the dome of the Capitol, unless there is an act of Congress, which has only happened twice, for Martin Luther King and for the suffrage leaders. And then you walk in the old Senate House chamber. And I don't know if you've ever been there. You got to come sometime. Let me give you the Cory Booker tour of the Capitol. It's 93% historically accurate. But on the floors, these little squares in gold that you walk over, those squares are places that people who are both House members and President of the United States, it's right where their desks were. Everybody always hustles over to see Lincoln's little square. But the one I love is John Quincy Adams, because he's the only person in American history that ever has and ever will go from the presidency back to the House of Representatives to serve. Then you get to the House chamber. You walk in through a line of House members, but then in come the cabinet members, in come the military leaders, in come the Supreme Court members. And I don't care what party you're in, Don, if you were ever in that chamber, when that person comes forward and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America," the whole chamber erupts. I still get chills, because you're not cheering for the man. You're cheering for the office, the tradition.
The office.
It's amazing.
For America. Yeah.
He comes up and stands there. Then they always have the First Lady come in. I had a couple moments where I lost it when Michelle came in. I was like, Michelle, if you had married me, I'd be president now. and then he gives a speech. Now that's an aerobic moment. You're standing up, you're sitting down, you got to get a lot of thigh work in. You got to do a lot of squats preparing for this because you're up and down so much. And then the President of the United States gets to the section of the speech that he read me. And I hear my words. This dude from Jersey,
Wow.
one of the few black people ever to serve in this chamber. And I was the first guy out of my seats clapping. I was the first person standing up. Everybody
That's
stand
my
up.
word.
Scott, stand up, man. Come on, brother. Give me a stand. So that night I go home and I'm lying in my bed, buzzing from the whole experience. And my phone lights up the room, which you shouldn't have your phone on your nightstand. I'm sorry, but I did. And I look at it. I don't recognize the number. And I open the text message. And the text message reads, Senator Booker, John Meacham here, the esteemed historian. He goes, thank you so much for helping the President of the United States with his speech.
Wow.
It made more of a difference than you'll ever know. And the first reaction I had was, how do you print out a text message? This is unbelievable. This historian who I've read a lot of his books, most recently, The Soul of America. And so I invite him to my office. And this is the part you'll love, Donna. I say the same thing you said to me. I express my frustrations and my worry about where we are in America. Fear and division, and I go through all of that. And then he looks at me and he smiles. And he says, you know something? There's nothing that's going on in America right now that's unprecedented. He says it's all precedented. And then he takes this swath of American history and just starts going through all the times our democracy has come to the brink, times I had forgotten about or didn't even know about. And when he finishes, he says to me, do you know what's always gotten us through? And I go, what's always gotten us through, sir? And he goes, it's never been the person in the White House or the person in the Senate or the House. It's always been the soul of our country and more of us choosing to stay the course than abandon it, than don't. And so here was this guy who has studied the awful chapters of our history and still believes in the people of this country, and that now, heading into this election, that we'll make the right choice.
You still believe. You still believe. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. Can I just say, and not, look, this is not a one-upsmanship, right? Because I know, people say, you people on television, you always have a way to turn it back to yourself. I have a very similar moment. I think it's a good way to end this. I remember my sister died.
Wow.
And this was 2018. She died suddenly, accidental drowning. And I was sitting on my couch. I was living in Harlem then. And the phone rings, and I look, and it's like it was a DC number. And I was like, well, what is this? And I usually don't answer numbers I don't know. And I answer for some reason. And they said, hi, is this Don Lemon? I said, yes, who's calling? I said, this is the Vice President Biden's office. Can you hold for the Vice President? And I'm like, is it? I'm like, this is a joke. I'm like, come on, stop pranking me. And I said, sure. I'm like, what the hell? Who's pranking me? And he gets on the phone and he goes, Don, Joe Biden, how you doing? And he goes through, he tells me how sorry he is. He knows loss. And he just wanted to call and comfort me and tell me that it's going to be tough to get through, but you can get through it, and it'll subside over time. And if I ever needed anything, to call him. And he stayed on the phone with me for 45 minutes. I had never had a long conversation with Joe Biden, except for maybe seeing him at the White House Christmas party, shaking his hand, the picture with him, and the first family. And that was it. And 45 minutes, he talked to me, and just, the man knows empathy, and I will always remember him for that. That's how I know he is a good person. And I think that's a good way to end. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. So good luck. Keep the good fight up. I'm so proud of you. That story that you told about Barack Obama, I hope you have that text message and you put it on you framed it. John Meacham. Be well, Senator. Please come back and talk to us, all right, throughout the course of the campaign. And I hope to see you at the convention.
I do as well. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show. Make sure you click on the image in the top right to subscribe to my channel and the thumbnail in the bottom right to watch more content from my show. And I'll see you next time.